start off with talking about IFRS 17. For those who are not aware, it's actually an accounting standard, so it's International Financial Reporting Standard 17. And it really reshapes how we look at insurance and reinsurance financial results in the industry. But today, when I was asked to speak on IFRS 17 at today's conference, and the questions I was asked, I really wanted to break it down into three separate things. First off, I want to talk about the operational side, then I wanted to move into the financials, and then thirdly, move in towards the evolution part of IFRS 17. Really what we're talking about today is IFRS 17 being a major challenge to the Indonesian insurance and reinsurance industry, but also an opportunity. And those opportunities are in all three of these points up here. So starting off by talking about operationally, my first point here is connecting the dots. What I mean by connecting the dots is within the insurance companies, both life and non-life, there are many different systems, data lakes, and other areas that are sometimes disparate. They're not necessarily connected. And what IFRS 17 is then nearly forcing insurance companies and the insurance market to do is to connect those together and increase the efficiencies within the actual companies themselves and within the organization. So going from an as-is IT architecture, understanding where those connections need to be made, understanding where the data needs to be brought in together, and then making sure that moving forward with regards to IFRS 17, that is then connected from all the way from the front of house, from the underwriting systems, all the way through to the data lakes, and then to the actuarial systems. The actuaries are going to have a significant importance moving forward, and then of course to the financial reporting and the final transitions towards a more transparent disclosure system. Look at the modernisation of insurance. The things that I see happening in terms of that challenge and the opportunities is transforming the internal processes and controls. If they're manual, look towards making them more streamlined, a greater use of intelligent automation, using robotic process automation, and potentially AI in the future. Just go back to the last slide, please. Thank you. Looking forward then to resourcing capabilities, one of the things globally, so IFRS 17 has been adopted globally in 2023. There is a delay in Indonesia until 2025, which is an opportunity to develop both the human capital and the additional resourcing that is going to be required. In terms of resourcing, training people to be more understanding and knowledgeable on IFRS 17, upskilling those people and adapting them to new technologies and greater automation, as well as bringing people more towards the manual processes, and then going forward into a smarter way of reporting results using IFRS 17 in the future. Of course, data is going to be hugely important, and one of the things that I want to talk about data is having the disparity of data. So in terms of IFRS 17, a significant amount of data is required, both for life and non-life insurance and reinsurance. What some of the issues are is, historically, the data may not have been there. And what's going to be needed in the future, once IFRS 17 becomes live, is having that ability to estimate, future cash flows and the timing of those cash flows, but having an incomplete set of data to use that. So one of the biggest challenges now is going to be finding that data and making sure it's all in one single place. So that, so moving forward, the actuaries and the financial reporting and the disclosure and people working on the disclosures will be able to essentially, will be able to more easily get through the entire financial reporting process and move forward from there. From a financial point of view, in terms of comparability, globally, as I said before, IFRS 17 is going to be it has been adopted already. So from an international standpoint, Indonesia is going to be on that same level as the insurance industries in Europe, in Canada, Australia, and as a result, we'll have a greater comparability with those large insurance giants and groups, and as a result will help as well in terms of the flow of capital and better in terms of modernising the insurance industry here. Additionally, transparency of results would be a major challenge as well. Under IFRS 17, there is a significant amount of greater disclosures that is required. If you look at the financial statements, they're going to increase by quite a bit in terms of size. But what we are seeing at the moment is those insurance companies and reinsurers who are disclosing more and are increasing their transparency into what they're doing and helping people understand, they are being seen as more, they're being seen more beneficially by capital markets and by analysts and their shareholders as a result. IFRS 17 itself does not actually change the business strategies of companies. So when we're looking at whether to write certain kinds of business, the economics do not change in that respect. But what the issue is in terms of performance measurement, the timing of the earning changes over time. And what that eventually means is, do you in the future have to take into account looking at business, does it need to be changed, and do you need to change the way you look at the business you're writing in the future? So the actual overall strategies don't change, but moving forward to performance measurement, and then of course uncertainties with what's going to happen in the future, do you need to look at things through a slightly different lens? Going towards evolution, of course, we're right now in the pre-adoption phase. For many insurance companies and for many markets who are not yet adopting IFRS 17 but in the process of doing so, it's a very important time. Getting the adoption right in terms of getting the process in place, getting data organised into one area, getting systems modernised. So this is a very, very important stage, and in the next slide, which we'll get to in a minute, I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. Of course, in 2025, in the transition to IFRS 17, there's going to be a lot of different changes going on. So first of all, with regards to transition, there's the understanding and the communicating of results. So management and the boards will really need to understand their actual own financial results, and then we'll need to be able to communicate that strongly to their stakeholders and investors to make sure that they are still on a very good platform moving forward. It's going to be a very important learning process for everyone, and as we're seeing in Europe at the moment, it's still very much up in the air. Post IFRS 17 adoption from 2025 onwards is still going to be quite busy, to be quite fair. So in Europe, what's happening at the moment, most firms have moved to IFRS 17. 40% of them, when surveyed by Insurance ERM, are actually still looking at IFRS 17 as their primary objective. Why is that? Well, they're still in the transition phase. They're still looking at being able to figure out what's, where they can find efficiencies, where they can find additional disclosures, and where they can find additional transparency to be able to communicate to their shareholders and other stakeholders. And also, in terms of moving forward towards transition, for many life insurers, there is a capital impact upon adoption. So there is a capital change that needs to be communicated as well. So looking at the road to 2025 and what's happening in Indonesia, at the moment, I would imagine that most companies or most people within the industry are in their discovery phase, which is understanding where the gaps are, understanding what kind of IT architecture is in place, the governance overall, so how are the decisions going to be made with regards to the key policies of IFRS 17, how is it going to get run up the flagpole all the way up to the board of directors and the audit committee, how is the project going to be set up itself, who's going to be the working group, who's going to be the project management, who are going to be the champions of IFRS 17, and of course things like position paper drafting, which is the accounting policy standpoint, which takes a long time. It needs to be drafted, it needs to be reviewed, it needs to be consistently improved on. Then what we're going to see is moving into the design phase from the end of this year onwards. And that's looking at designing the solution of IFRS 17, whether that be software, additional hardware, changing in processes, changing controls, and so on and so forth. Preparing that data. If the data is in different parts of your IT architecture, how do you put that together and make it very easy to access? And of course, bringing together those processes and controls. In 2024, and what we've seen in Europe, and for those adopting in 2023, the execution phase, which is looking at parallel runs, finalising accounting policy, and implementation of the actual overall solution, and then ongoing improvement. And of course, once we get into 2025, the IFRS 17 adoption, we'll be then moving on to looking at either other parts of the business that need to be improved on or worked upon, or really just still looking at IFRS 17 and helping people understand your results, the results of the insurance companies, and continually improving the processes to make sure that you're able to get the most and the best transformation out of IFRS 17.